So today we are having an amazing personality, Mr. Revant Himatsingka, with us. And first of all, I would really like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Revant that he has accepted our invite at such a short notice. To give you all a brief about Mr. Revant, he's a Wharton graduate, 6 times TEDx speaker, author of an Amazon best-selling book, Selfienomics, and the one who refused admission to IIM Bangalore to pursue his passion. So in today's session, Mr. Revant will gonna share amazing and inspiring journey of his life and also share secrets how he has reached to TEDx and published his first book. For coming back to this session, it has been categorized into 2 different parts. The first session will be of 20 minutes, wherein Mr. Revant will talk about his life story. And the second session will be of 25 minutes, which is basically a question and answers round, which will be moderated by my colleague, Toastmaster Sukanya. So in case if anyone have any query in the first session, I would request to post to Ms. Sukanya on her Zoom chat. So with that, I would like to unmute everyone and join me to welcome Mr. Revant on virtual screen with huge round of applause. Mr. Revant, the virtual screen is all yours.
Hi, Sunil, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for that warm introduction and all the applause. So I'm not going to spend too much time introducing myself. I think I'm going to go straight into what I'm here to talk about. So when people meet me, they often ask me about why I wrote the book Selfienomics, or how did I get Bloomsbury, the publishers of the Harry Potter series, to publish my book, or how did I had absolutely no writing background, so how did I get into writing? So flashback to 2014, my life was pretty good. I was doing my first ever full-time job. It was a finance job in New York. The only issue was that almost every website was blocked. Facebook, Gmail, Instagram, everything was blocked at work. So I had no option but to spend my free time on websites like Google, Quora, Wikipedia, and stuff like that. So I used to Google really random things, like what percentage of penguins are gay? Should marriages be 5-year renewable contracts or lifelong contracts? Is the color orange named after the fruit orange, or is the fruit orange named after the color orange? If 2-1 is 21, 3-1 is 31, 4-1 is 41, then why don't we call 1-1 as 1T1? So anyway, I used to Google really random things. And one other Google for the Indians who blogged in was SRK on an escalator when he sang "Main thera raha, zami chalne lagi." Anyway, I used to Google really random things, and in all this Googling and thinking about random questions, I learned that we really stopped thinking about the big picture topics ourselves. We just accept what we've been told by others. Like for small things, we are very opinionated. We try to maximize our decisions for small things. But for big things, we often take things for granted and do what our parents told us to do. So for small decisions like which car you want to buy, you may test drive 4 or 5 different cars, and then you may buy a car. If you want to buy a mobile phone, you may again look into different reviews and ratings. You want to order food from a restaurant on Zomato or wherever else you order from, Swiggy. You may look into 5-7 different restaurants, reviews, and stuff like that. But for the major decisions of our lives, like we often do what our parents told us to do. A person born in a Christian family usually becomes a Christian. A person born in a Hindu family usually becomes a Hindu. A person born in a Muslim family usually becomes a Muslim. How many ratings or reviews did you read before deciding which religion is correct for you? We just do whatever our parents told us. A person born in a non-vegetarian family usually becomes a non-vegetarian. A person born in a vegetarian family usually becomes a vegetarian. And we start justifying that habit throughout our lives. So I used to find this crazy. Someone has spent more time deciding which restaurant to order biryani from than they've spent on deciding which religion is correct for them. And I personally feel this is one of, and I've this holds true for people, the smart, so-called smartest people of the world, the people who've launched the biggest startups, the people who go to Harvard and IIT, and the people. A lot of these people are supposed to be data-driven, and they are very data-driven when it comes to their career. But when it comes to their actual life, we don't really use data. And I've gone to speak at IITs and even IIMs, and when I ask them, on what basis, when I ask any student, on what basis did you decide that Hinduism is the correct religion for you? They often don't have a valid answer. Or same thing, if I ask them, why are you a vegetarian? They often don't have a response. They just, but if I ask them, oh, do you like Ranveer Singh or Ranbir Kapoor? Who do you like more? Or do you prefer to sit in an aisle seat or a window seat? They'll give you a detailed reply. Oh, I like to sit in an aisle seat because I have this. I like to sit in a window seat because I can put my head here, this, that, whatever. They'll give you a detailed reply about these small things. And I personally find this crazy. And I felt like I want to express myself. And I personally call this a default mode syndrome, where we just do whatever is the default. Jo bhi for the bigger decisions. So I wanted to try and express this in a book. I had never written a book, but I wanted to try and express myself. And I thought that, okay, maybe writing something would be good. And I wanted to help people uncondition themselves from the biases that they may have from what their parents have taught us and what the society has taught us. And I wanted to help people think, like, if you were to choose your religion yourself rather than your parents, which religion would you choose? Would you be a Hindu or a Jain or a Buddhist or a Muslim? If you had to choose it yourself, if you were to name yourself, like, Mudit, have you ever thought, like, if you had to name yourself, what would you name yourself instead of your parents naming you? I know you can't do that when you're like 0 or 1 years old, but suppose when you were 18 years old or 20 years old, if you were given that option, okay, now you can name yourself. It's a very, we don't really think about these things. So I thought I wanted to write a book about this and about like trying to help people uncondition themselves from this, whatever we've been told by society. But since I did not have any, so I set myself targets of 500 words on the weekdays, 1,000 words on the weekends. And I started writing during my commute to work in New York. But the problem was that I had absolutely no writing background. So I had to come up with innovative ways to motivate myself. So I changed my Gmail password to hashtag I am an author, even though I was not an author back then. And every time I typed my password, I am an author, it motivated me to complete my book. And once when I'd accidentally deleted 4 chapters of my book, I had almost, I deleted 4 chapters of my book. I was really frustrated. I almost thought of giving up my book. But just the thought of typing my password, I am an author, it motivated me to complete the entire book. I had first set my password as, I hope to be an author, but Gmail said that my password is too weak. Anyway, I have changed my password since then, so please don't try and hack my account. So anyway, after doing all of this, changing my password, setting myself targets, I was finally able to write a book of about 250 pages. But now was the next harder part, which was the publishing this book. And I reached out to many publishers in New York, but all of them rejected me. And then I decided that just one second. Yeah. I reached out to several publishers, all of them rejected me. And then I decided to Google how to publish a book. And all the links that came up were self-publishing links in which I would have to pay money to Amazon to publish my book. And my book would only be available on Amazon and not in the bookstores. So like any other self-help or like any other author, like, if you were an author, your dream would probably be that your book is available in bookstores and not just on Amazon. And that was my dream. Like, I want to go to a bookstore and see my book there. And I don't want it to be available in just on Amazon. I don't want to pay money to get my book published. I want the publishers to pay me to write a book. So I decided to go to the bookstores. Like, I went to 3-4 different bookstores. And over a course of 10 days, I picked out more than 100 books, which were similar to mine, like self-help books, books that were similar to mine by debut authors. And I did not read the books. I just went to the acknowledgements page. And over a course of 10 days, I read more than 100 acknowledgements pages of self-help books by debut authors, authors who were successful enough to get their book in bookstores. And notice that every debut author always thanks their editors and agents in the acknowledgements pages. So over a course of 10 days, I made a list. I wrote down every single editor and agent's name that was coming on an Excel sheet. And I saw the same 5 to 7 editors and agents' names kept coming up again and again on several books. And I knew that these are the 5-7 literary agents and editors who are the most popular editors and agents in the self-help book category. And they like to work with debut authors in the self-help book category. So I found their email online, and I sent them personalized emails about how my book was similar to the previous books they've published. And one thing led to the other, and I finally started getting traction from publishers like Bloomsbury, Penguin, HarperCollins. But the problem was that they told me often, Revant, your content is great. But to be honest, no one in the US, UK, and the Western audience, they don't want to read a self-help book written by an Indian unless it's about yoga or spirituality. And you can imagine my face that time. Like, I've spent so much time writing this book, and they're rejecting my book because it's not about yoga or spirituality. But when I thought about it again, it kind of made sense. Like, all the Indian self-help authors who've done well abroad, monk who sold his Ferrari, or like, they always talk about yoga or spirituality indirectly or directly. Books like by Deepak Chopra and this and that. So that is the stereotype, and I was not following that. So while I decided to be passionate, I also wanted to be practical. So I decided to rewrite my entire book for an Indian audience. So I changed Donald Trump into Narendra Modi. Like, I just changed around the examples that I was using in my book, and I made it for an Indian or a South Asian audience. So Donald Trump became Narendra Modi. Cristiano Ronaldo became Virat Kohli. The Hollywood examples became Bollywood examples. But I let Priyanka Chopra remain Priyanka Chopra. Anyway, so I Indianized the entire book, and we Indians, we love to Desify and Indianize everything. You go to Haldiram and you find pizzas with bhujia on it. And I'm pretty sure if a Punjabi wrote Da Vinci Code, he would name it Vinci Da Code. So we Indians, we love to Desify everything. And I think retrospectively, it helped me improve the content of my book because I'm an Indian. I think of Indian examples before I think of other examples. So I think it helped me improve my content. And finally, I was able to get a contract with Bloomsbury. And I decided to go all in. I decided to quit my job in New York, and I decided to come to India to market my book. But meanwhile, I had also gotten into an MBA program in India, IIM Bangalore. And I had spent 6 to 9 months, probably more, studying for the entrance exams. And I told my parents that I don't want to go. I want to instead focus on marketing and focus on launching my book. And my friends and family, they could not understand how anyone can be smart enough to get into IIM, but stupid enough to not go. And I was telling them, I tried to pacify them, and I told them, the most successful people in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, they're all dropouts. And I'm not even going to be a dropout. I'm not even going to go in the first place. Just imagine how successful I'm going to become. My mom was the only person who was supportive in my journey, and she told me, Beta, if you go to IIM, you're going to write books like the other IIM authors. And we all know the kind of books the other IIM authors write. So don't go to IIM. Anyway, so eventually I took the courage and I did not go to IIM, and I decided to come to India, focus on my book, focus on marketing, and launching it with full bang. And my publishers, Bloomsbury, they also helped me out a lot. They helped me speak in certain schools, colleges. I also spoke at a few TEDx events, and a lot of that happened. And we had planned it very carefully. We would launch it in November during the winter months when the students are slightly freer and they don't really have exams. And we would launch it very carefully. So I was super excited. And the day of my launch on November 8th, 2016, super excited. My first ever book is going to launch. And out of nowhere, the Prime Minister announces demonetization on the day of my launch. And I mean, whenever I tell this to people, people start laughing, but you can't imagine how sad and how crazy and confused I was. Like, I did not even understand, at that time, what does demonetization exactly mean? What does it mean for my book? What's going to happen? And I think I personally have a knack for choosing the worst possible dates. I'm born on 29th February. My birthday comes once in 4 years. And my book released on 8th November, 2016, which is probably the worst date you could choose your book to be launched before 2020. Now there are probably even worse dates that are there. So during those months of demonetization, if you remember, in India, people did not even often have money to buy basic necessities. Like, they didn't have cash. The last thing they were going to think about is buying a book by a debut author who they have not even heard of. So in the first month, when my book released, my book was like this in the front of the bookshelves. You go to any bookshelf in India, or you go to the airports in India, and the bookshelves in the airports, my book would be right in the front like this. In the second month, my book was like this in the bookshelves. You could just see this part of it. No one was, now they weren't marketing, putting my book right front like this. They were putting it like this. In the third month, it was somewhere in the side corner. And the fourth month, it wasn't even there in the Indian bookshelves. It did well in other South Asian countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh. It even got featured in the World Book Fair. However, in the main market, which was the Indian market, it got completely wiped off at that point. And I was crushed. I did not really know what to do. I was flabbergasted. I even changed my password as I'm a best-selling author, but it did not help. Later on, much later, 2-3 years later, it got more and more traction as there were good reviews about the book. But by and large, as compared to the potential, it did not really do as much. So it was at that time I realized that just the way you can regret giving up on your dreams, sometimes you can even regret chasing your dreams and not taking a more realistic path. In my personal case, I did not regret it. However, there are situations where people can regret even following their dreams, and the entire thing which people say, follow your passion, it can sometimes backfire as well. And I want to sort of summarize or end my talk, and I'm going to open it up for questions. But before I do that, I want to just talk about a couple of learnings that I've had. One is three words which mean a lot to me, which is progress before perfection. And this is something which has been really close to me, these three words, progress before perfection. And I feel a lot of us, we have very lofty goals. We want to um, do a lot of things, but we often want everything to be perfect. And in the chase of perfection, we keep procrastinating. We feel the time is not correct. So when so many people have reached out to me, they say they want to become authors, they want to do this, they want to do that, but they keep waiting, they keep procrastinating. And I feel at some point, perfectionism and procrastination is almost the same thing sometimes. So I personally believe that don't always focus on perfection. Sometimes focus on making a progress. And this is something which I have tried to follow, and don't always like just begin and then you can take it from there. And the second thing is actually not exactly a lesson, but something which I want to ask all of you. When was the last time you changed your mind about something that you were passionate about? So this can be about a religion. Like think about 10 years ago, 2010. What religion were you following? What diet were you following? Were you a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian or a vegan? Or whatever diet were you following? What sports team were you following? I've seen so many people who, when they are 7, 8 years old, they start following football for like 3 months. They start supporting Manchester United. And then for their entire lives, when they were based on what the team they started liking when they were 6 years old or 7 years old, they support the same team for the next 50, 60 years or however long they live. And uh, with political parties as well, like the same people do the same thing. Once they start supporting in a particular thing, they don't care about what is right, what is wrong. They just continue believing blindly about what is being said by that political party. So I want to ask you again, when was the last time you changed your mind about something that you strongly believed in, something that you were doing every day? There was a quote by Muhammad Ali: the man who views the world at 50, the same as he did at the age of 20, has wasted 30 years of his life. And I today want to really ask all of you to question your basic everyday habits. I personally spoke a bit about diet, like vegetarianism or non-vegetarianism, or I spoke a bit about choosing your own religion. Like I personally even sometimes ask people, we do internships and jobs nowadays. Can you do religious internships? Like, you for 1 month, you're completely focusing on another religion, which is not your family religion. Like, you suppose 1 month you try and experience Buddhism. So, you before choosing the right career, you do different internships and see which is the right industry you like. So before choosing your right religion, why can't you do something similar? Or just explore, like, just don't blindly follow what your parents. Anyway, this is what I wanted to share today, but I'm going to open it up for questions, and I would really love if all of you ask me whatever you all want. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Revant. A huge round of applause for it, guys. And I request everybody to please switch on their videos to make that would help in making the session more lively. And saying that, I would like to answer your question. You just asked, when was the last time you changed your mind? You were something really passionate about. So I was really passionate about becoming a doctor. And due to some reasons, I couldn't. So I changed my mind. I decided to do honors in biotechnology. And now I am preparing for CAT and I'm planning to do MBA. But you just said, don't go to IIMs. So it has, I'm again in that circle that I don't know what I'm going to do next. Because but people like you who are trying to break the norms of the society that the society has set for us, you are somebody I would like to call you extraordinary, because you are doing something that most of the people doesn't do. Most of the people are afraid to take the risk. They are afraid to go out, to come out from their comfort zones, to step out from their comfort zones. You rejected the acceptance letter from IIM Bangalore, which most of the people are dying to, get into. And yeah, kudos to your spirits, and people like you inspires all of us. So saying that, the session is open for
Can
question
I
and
just say one thing? Thank you so much again for all of that. I just want to say one thing. You said that I said don't go to IIM. I just said that I did not choose to go to IIM. I'm not saying that you should not go to IIM. But I also want to say one thing, which is that I'm going to speak about for 1 or 2 minutes, if you don't mind. Is I personally don't ask people to not go to IIM, but one thing which I ask people to not do is don't do difficult things just because it is being glorified by society. And I feel a lot of people go to IIM or IIT or any, not because of, like if I ask people, why do you want to go to IIM? There are two broad reasons. One is the job which you get after IIM, and the second is the brand associated with IIM. And the brand associated with IIM is purely because of how difficult it is to receive an admissions offer. It is not because I have not heard anyone say I want to go to IIM. IIM to some extent I've pretty heard, but especially IIT, I have not heard anyone saying I want to go to IIT because I want to learn a lot. I want to do research in chemical engineering, and I know that IIT has the best professors, so that is the only way I can learn about chemical engineering or anything like that. No one ever goes to IIT because they want to learn a lot. People go to IIT because the brand associated with IIT, which, so I strongly believe that don't do difficult things, try to do useful things. And I feel that is not only true with IIM and IIT, it's also true with life in so many other aspects. I feel like we run, like some people try to climb Mount Everest. If you do that, you will probably get like hundreds of likes on Facebook, and you probably may even get media attention and this and that. But I personally feel that is because society is glorifying difficult things. And if someone alternatively was doing something less difficult, like suppose running a 10K, or was helping one child, teaching one child English, no media would care about it. I feel too many times we glorify difficult things and we think anything is difficult is useful. That's why in our WhatsApp groups, our family WhatsApp groups, people share like those BODMAS riddles, and like people feel really proud, oh, I was able to solve a difficult riddle. And sometimes I feel, and I say this, don't just try to be excellent, try to be excellent in something which is useful. So I don't say don't go to IIM, I just say that go to IIM only if you feel you're going to gain something of use. Don't do it just because it is something which is difficult and society values. Oh, IIM admission ho gaya. Sorry, it was unnecessary rant.
No, that's completely all right. And now I think I have completely understood that. Okay, you have to work hard and you should go to IIM. Okay, so the session is open for question and answer, and I think Subhash sir has a question, and that is, if you of a regret, how to overcome it. Okay, for example, like there are instances when people take a risk and it might not work out the way they thought it would, and it might be really heartbreaking at that time. So how do you really overcome that? Because I think something similar happened with you also when the book was published, demonetization came into picture. So how did you tackle with that situation?
Yeah, so I feel there are two things. One is mistakes and one is regrets. And I feel, and I ask people to, we usually regret what we don't do more than what we do. So if I make that decision that, okay, I'm going to go I'm going to go and write a book and I'm going to publish it, the chances of me regretting that is slightly much lower than if I did not choose to write the book at all. So I always try to say, like, don't minimize mistakes, try and minimize regrets. So I am like, I've made a lot of mistakes as well. I did not speak about, like, I'd also tried to start restaurants, and I did like a few other things as well. And I made a lot of mistakes there as well. But I always say that don't minimize mistakes, try and minimize regrets. And something like what happened in my case, where there was an external factor which also contributed to a possible thing not going well. So something which is not going well, which is not in your control, there's no point bickering or worrying about that. But you do think about what you can do next. So I am personally, for example, it's been almost 4 years now, but I've still not given up. And I'm trying to republish my book. So I've been in talks with my publishers, and now I'm going to try to republish my book. Of course, now this pandemic happened. So I'm trying to wait for like 6 to 8 months, and I want to try and republish my book and see if and I'm trying to even further improve my book on basis of the feedback I've got. So yeah, I feel like sometimes you just try again, and if it's not in your control, then there's no point worrying about it.
All right. Our best wishes are with you for the same. And the session is open for question and answer. If anybody has any question, they are most welcome. And Subhash sir, I hope that you got your answer.
Okay, I think Ali has raised her hand.
Okay, Ali. Sunil sir, please unmute her so that she can ask her question.
Ali is a man. Have you unmuted?
Okay. I'm so sorry, so that he can ask his question.
Thank you very much, Revant. I think that was quite inspirational, and it's wonderful to see that, as somebody said, you decided to chart a different path like outliers do. You mentioned something about being paid first before publishing. What is the advantage or risk of that?
So I basically what the point I was trying to make was that often nowadays there are a lot of self-publishers where all they try to do is they ask you to pay money, and then your book gets published, and it only is available on Amazon. And what happens is that usually only your friends and family buys it, and besides your 20-30 friends, no one will ever read your book. So essentially, you can call yourself an author and you can feel good about it and you can put it on your resume and all of that, but your book doesn't really reach anywhere. And it's not a bad thing, but it's like just a way for your book to get published without any proper distribution. So I personally did not want to do that. I did not want to pay to get my book published. I would rather be the traditional way where an author is supposed to be paid. You work for 1 or 2 years to write a book, and then you're supposed to hopefully be paid to write it. So, which is why what I said was that after writing my book, when I was signing the contract, the publishers paid me a particular amount. A bit of that was royalties, a bit of that was an advance, which was that regardless of how many copies I sell, they're going to give me that amount. And the other is on the basis of how many copies I sell. So when I said that paid first, I just meant that I would rather I don't want to go through the self-publishing route. I would rather go through the traditional publishing route, which is through publishers like Bloomsbury, Penguin, and these kind of publishers.
Okay, Ali, I hope that answers your query. And next up, okay, somebody is saying something. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Next we
I
have
think Galal is raising his hand. Galal has a question.
okay, but we have Rinku, and after Rinku, we will take up the query of Galal. Okay. So Rinku has something to ask, and I would request Toastmaster Sunil to please unmute her so that she can ask her question.
Okay.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all fellow Toastmasters from across the world. It was really very informative session which is going on. I have a quick query. Revant, what did you think that the Indian readers did not take values from your book? So it just washed away from all the shops across India. What was the reason? What you felt actually? See, being an author, I'm sure you reevaluated the situation. So could you please shed some light on it?
Sure. So I felt the Indian readers, when I mentioned it got washed off, what I meant was that there was demonetization going on back then when my book had released. So because of which my distribution and like the entire marketing really got affected, because so my book had released on November 8, 2016, the day when the Prime Minister in India announced demonetization. So what had happened in the next 2 months, no one was really buying books in India as such. So most books that came out in India were getting, unless the one or two books which did sort of well were books by really big authors, but most debut author sort of books with people who've not heard of me, they did not prioritize buying my book over using that same cash for more important things like food and medicine. But some other things just to which I felt I could have improved on. So, when I was writing my book, I was trying to make my book funny and I was trying to make my book relatable. So I was talking about a lot of current issues. So I'm suppose there's something in politics going on right now, or some controversy or something in media with some movie which everyone's talking about. Suppose 2 months ago everyone was talking about Money Heist or Dalgona Coffee. So I'd made some references in my book which were very current to that time. But by the time my book released, I didn't realize that publishing is such a long process. And 1 year later, when my book released, those jokes and references were no longer valid. So what was funny when I was writing is no longer funny 1 year later when my book is getting published. So that is something which I really struggled with. And when I read my book again, like there's some references I've used, some celebrities. No one even cares about those celebrities anymore. And back then when I was writing my book, it was very relevant. So now I'm like, when I'm trying to write, I try to make sure I'm not referring to current things. For example, when I'm talking about a movie, a current movie, suppose a movie like Sultan, which in India made 300 crores, made big, huge movie. But now no one remembers what really happened in the movie, even if it's a big hit. But a classic movie like Dil Chahta Hai or Sholay, or everyone remembers those movies. So if I were to refer a joke or if I were to make a joke in my book, I would refer to those classic things, not a current movie which is done well and people talk about for a week and then they forget. So that is just some learning which I personally had, is that don't refer to current things, refer to classic things, because people forget very quickly the memes and jokes very quickly. But Rinku, to answer your question very directly in one line, now in one line, I already went over a lot of lines, but is that the reason why I said it got washed away was mainly because of demonetization, where people were not really buying books during that time.
Okay, Rinku, I hope that answers your question. And listening to you, Revant, I think I should go and watch Dil Chahta Hai because I haven't till now.
Oh, wow.
So next up we have Mr. Galal Zaki, and the stage is all yours. You can ask your question. Toastmaster Sunil, can you
unmute?
Thank you. Thank you, Revant, for an inspiring talk. perfection and procrastination, and perfection spells paralysis, according to Churchill. I don't know what to say. 43 years ago, I wrote a one-act play on Shakespeare. And my friends have been telling me I want to take all the roles. It's called 16th Century Nightmare, or the Unfinished Tragedy. Shakespeare wrote his 4 great tragedies, Macbeth, Hamlet, Lear, Othello, and wants to write the 5th that will make him immortal. And it's a one-act play, and the 3 witches of Macbeth, and I take all the roles, the witches, Macbeth, Othello, Hamlet, Lear, and Shakespeare. I've written that, and nothing has happened. People have been telling me to do it on television. The other thing is, 20 years ago, I've been trying to write story of my wife, because she is my life. And my wife keeps telling me, Galal, when are you going to finish your unfinished tragedy or book about story of my wife? So thank you. I see some of the things about making mistakes rather than regrets. And but I have a play that's written, so how could I? And I would act it on video, which I think now people are more audiovisual than reading a book. You know, if I can act it out in 10 minutes one day for you guys. All the roles with William Shakespeare, Othello, Hamlet, Lear, the witches of Macbeth, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Sorry, I took too much time.
That's absolutely incredible, your entire story and journey. And I would personally love to see that play as well. And yeah, that sounds absolutely incredible the way you, and I hope one day you also finish the tragedy or story about your wife as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Even I'm looking forward to his book or plays. Like, he keeps talking about his wife in every meeting. Whenever we meet, he keeps telling us stories. So I'm excited, and I'm really looking forward to it, sir. So next up, we have a question from Soli sir, and it goes something like this. When and how did you know that you had quality content that people would want to read?
Yeah, so I personally, through that entire journey of writing that book, so when you apply to publishers, you directly or indirectly start getting feedback from them. So if you don't get replies, you probably kind of get a clue that maybe that your content is not that great. If you start getting replies, then you get a better sense of how your quality may be. So in that sense, I started getting some sort of feedback from the publishers, from the agents and editors who I was applying to. I do want to say one thing is that I did not take too much feedback from my friends. So only after I wrote the entire book did I tell my mom that I've written a book or I'm writing a book. I did not, while I was writing, I did not tell it because I found that maybe it was a lack of confidence or something, but sometimes I felt like when I did tell 1 or 2 people, oh, I want to write something, people used to usually make fun of it. Like, you know, because I had absolutely, at that point of time, no background in writing. So, you know, out of nowhere, you know, if you're not a great writer in the traditional sense, like, you know, in my English classes in college, I'm not like, you know, getting, like, you know, in the traditional sense of it, I'm not like some, so people usually make fun of it. Yeah, you know, why are you not coming to the birthday party? Oh, I want to write a book. I want to, you know, it sounds ridiculous. So I was personally not really sharing my journey and story or I want to write with too many people. But the feedback element, that's why I was not able to get from my friends. I was getting it mainly from the publishers in terms of the quality that you were telling. But besides, and I do want to say one more thing, when you say the word quality, some people, when they think of quality, they think of fancy words. I personally use the same word that I'm speaking in right now when I'm writing as well. Like some people try to when you're writing, you say, when you speak, you say 6. When you're writing, you say half a dozen. Like you always try to make it sound more and more like, you know, when you're speaking, you say remembering. When you're writing, you say reminiscing. And so I just, in that sense, my book was very simple and straightforward. And I just felt like the content is different. Like, you know, people often don't question these things. Oh, why am I a Hindu? Why am I Muslim? So I felt that content is strong, even if the writing style may not be, that is subjective. That some people may like, some people may not like. Just one thing, there's some background noise, I'm just shutting it.
I'm asking you. Gets it done. Okay, we have. Okay, he's back.
Yeah. Sorry. I hope that answered your question. But yeah, the main, you know, in just summarizing in one line, I got most of the quality feedback from my publishers.
Okay, I have a question, Revant. When you are writing something, you know, when you are about to deliver, if we talk about Toastmasters, if we are supposed to deliver our speech, we have two things in our mind. Something that we want to speak about and something that we know the audience, our audience is interested to know or hear. Like, so how do you differentiate between these two things? Like, if it is the same thing that you want to tell or you want to deliver to the audience, the content you are delivering to the audience is something that they are interested to know about or hear about.
Yeah. So I always, I always tell people there are a lot of must-read books that are there, like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. A lot of those very, very great books, but the younger audience often doesn't want to, they find these books boring or preachy. So I personally was trying, like, it's not try to make, like, my book is not only going to be a must read, it's going to also be a must read. So I want my book to combine comedy, like, you know, and make it must, not just like, so a point was I was trying to be very focused on also what the authors want, like, you know, you mentioning the 2 questions which the Toastmasters have. So as I said, like, I was trying to think always, what do the readers, what is the people in India, like, what do they think about, what do they talk about? So there are 3-4 things which I thought, like, you know, people talk about Bollywood a lot, people talk about cricket a lot, people talk about politics a lot, people talk about their neighbors a lot, which I can't really, but so there are 3-4 topics where people talk about a lot. And if I can reference some of these things, so if I'm saying something super serious, I'm talking about religion. But if I just add 1 or 2 lines of humor which connects with Bollywood, or if I add like a line which connects with Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi, or like some meme or jokes, and I used to personally, I still, like, you know, when I go on social media, I go to different pages and I read a lot of the comments. And through those comments, to some extent, I get an idea about what the average Indian or like people who are from different backgrounds from me, what are they thinking? What are they passionate about? What do they think like? So I personally try to make myself more familiar through understanding what others talk about, and I try to reference those topics. So for example, when I'm trying to write something now, I'm writing something similar. I'm trying to, for example, write about money heist, a few references, or suppose Indian matchmaking, or like, you know, these are things which people find interesting. So no one wants to read a book about, not no one, but not too many people want to read a book about vegetarian or non-veg, or Hindu or Muslim, or like, you know, that just people find it boring or preachy. So I feel you have to balance a bit of both, of what you want to say and what others want to read.
Okay, thank you so much, Revant, for answering that question. And next up, we have Toastmaster Shobit. He has a question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, what an inspiring session, Revant. what can I say? Like writing a book wasn't on my bucket list, but now listening to you, it is. And I think I should just start off with getting a pen and a pad and just begin. However, I have a lot of questions. Whenever I'm writing something or writing a speech or something, usually there is an explosion of ideas inside of my head, right? And then what do I add within that framework is what matters. I usually have a problem with that. So you must have also had that problem where, okay, this is the single most incredible moment in my life or experience, and I want to add this into the book. So can you just tell me, how would I actually decide what I want to add and what I want to cut down? Or how do I actually think? How do I actually manage the ideas that I have for a book or a speech or whatever it may be?
Great. No, thank you so much for asking that. And I think that's a very interesting question. And I think it's a slightly technical question. Like, I guess every author has their own style of how they manage that. In my personal case, I am passionate, as you said, about explosion of ideas. So I am passionate about so many different topics: health, dating, religion, food, sports. There's so many different things. And in my book as well, I cover so many different topics. Like, I'm not just talking about one topic, I'm talking about all these different topics. So I personally also faced a similar issue sort of a thing where there were so many things. How do I structure it? What do I include? What do I not include? So I personally, I spoke about already how I used to write when I was at my job in New York. So when I was at my job in New York, I used to send myself emails of whatever I was thinking in that job every day. So over a course of a year, I had like 200-300 emails from every single day of different thoughts. So what I personally tried to do was put every single thing on one Word document. Like anything I'm thinking about, whether it's one day you're having an idea about this, or there may be 5-7 different ideas, but you just try to bullet point it out and just write just a bullet point, 3-4 words about all those major ideas. And then one day I tried to pick different themes from all the ideas. So I found that these 20 different things are all some way directly or indirectly connected to health. These 10 or 15 things directly or indirectly all connected to religion. These 10 things are all connected to sports. So then I tried to, in the Word doc, put different things together, like, put those different content all together. So, and then I try to, through those bullet points, try to make a thing out of it. So, I mean, it's a very personal thing. Again, there's no right way or there's no correct way to do it. That was my personal way, how I went about it. And when you asked me, how do you decide what to keep and what not to keep? That is, again, sort of some of your personal thing. Like, sometimes I try to ask myself, similar to what Sukanya said, that is it just something which I want to express, or do I think people also want to hear, or not only want to hear, but will that make a difference? There's sometimes I feel there's something which is just interesting, but it's not really relevant. So I try to have their own mini filter where you try to filter things out and remove content. And that's why when I had earlier said I wrote a book of 250 pages, but my actual book, if you see the published version, is just 190 pages. So I've tried to remove so many things, and it's a very hard thing because you spend months writing that 60 pages that you remove. No one else knows that 60 pages. And I personally know that. So it is, again, like you have to set yourself very strong background filters where you keep certain things, remove certain things. And yeah, that was my personal structuring process, but there is no right or wrong way. Every author structures their explosion of idea differently and they work with that differently. So I'm not sure if I can be 100% helpful with that.
You were helpful. You were, in a lot of ways. Also, can I ask another question? And it isn't related to writing a book.
Shobit, we have Pallavi here and she has raised her hand for
No problem. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it from Pallavi. her question. Pallavi, please.
Shobit, we can even discuss that later after the call or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Toastmasters Sukanya, and hello everyone. I'm from the Adobe Toastmasters Club. And my question is, I'll put it in short, and then it's a very broad question. In general, it is what kept you going and what keeps you going is a very, it's very framed, but what I want to understand, for any artist, it can be a painter to a writer to a public speaker or any other genre, you are flooded with thoughts, you are flooded with ideas that you want to implement. For you especially, because you could have taken the normal Indian style, which is like grow up, get your education, get a good college, like I am, what better can it be? And then get a good job, get married, have children, and da-da-da. And they lived happily ever after. That's the most ideal process in which we are brought up. So have my parents brought me up in the same way. But when you have to break that cliched format and you have to not have, but you decide this is what my passion is. This is something that I want to share. Sometimes you're delusional, sometimes you're confused. And there are many external factors. When you're writing a book, there are publishers. When you want to probably recite your speech, there are people who will tell you this is allowed, that's not allowed. You might come later, you might come not fit in the frame. So many things. I'm sorry if I'm being very elaborate, but Revant, what I want to understand as an aspirant of maybe public speaking to theater to dance to any art form, I want to understand what kept you going, what did not make you completely distorted with those ideas and is still keeping you going, so that when you share an inspirational story with others, you're fully content in yourself. So how do you do that? Because certainly I feel I'm in shambles. So over to you. I'm sorry if it was too elaborate.
No, thank you so much for asking that. And when you say what kept you going and what keeps you going, so I already shared some like hacks about that password and all of that, but that is obviously small things that you do, which
Sure.
is small things add value. I am an author, I am this, I'm that, but those are just small hacks. But broader than that, for me personally, what has kept me going is, I always say I'm not exactly a writer. I think I'm a thinker, which has led me to write. And
Sure.
so I personally, I am just curious about how people think and why people think the way they think, like how an animal lover who sometimes dedicates their lives for animals, how can they eat animals every day? Like, I find that very interesting.
Absolutely.
How do people who love dogs but eat other animals, how do, like, there are so many things which fascinate me. And like when people talk about discrimination, I was in the US till 6 months ago, and every second day there was a talk in, like, there were seminars in a university about, I mean, this is slightly controversial, but there were seminars on women's rights and Black people rights,
Yeah.
which is completely needed. But what I found surprising is and discrimination in those fronts are spoken about, but what no one ever spoke about was discrimination by different country people faced by, like, different borders. Like, you know, if you're not from an American versus a non-American, or a UK citizen versus a non-UK citizen, like, you can, if you make a law, men only are allowed to work, everyone will call that, oh my God, how can you do that? If you say white people only are allowed to work, that's gonna go in the, that's crazy. You can't even imagine that. But if you make a law, only British citizens are allowed to work. If you're a non-British citizen, you're not allowed to work. No one thinks of that as discrimination. Like, that is crazy. Like, for me, that is crazy. Like, how can you not? Like, I was running a restaurant in London. I was not allowed to get Indian chefs from India to come, even if they were much more talented than the chefs in the UK. You are so I find that crazy. That is like number one discrimination. So for me, when you say what kept you going, is when I see people making decisions like that. So I guess that is not relevant for every art form. Maybe if I was a painter or if I was a singer, maybe there was something like else which would keep me going. But in my personal case, it is the curiosity of why people think the way they do. And I feel, and that is probably what is, I think I make my answers too long. Yeah, that is what has kept me going.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
But again, that may differ from different art forms, I feel.
Absolutely. Probably that comes with cumulative questions, but I'm sure I'll save time for Sukanya because many more people would be intending to ask. So thank you so much, Sukanya. Thank you, Revant, for the answer.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I would request everybody to please switch on their videos so that we can see your beautiful smiling faces and click a picture. And I also, I would thank Mr. Revant, for, as mentioned by Sunil sir also, that for accepting our invitation on such a short notice. And now I would request Toastmaster Mudit, President of Chandigarh Toastmasters Club, to come on the virtual stage and felicitate Mr. Revant with a vote of thanks and give the closing remarks.
I'll interrupt Mr. Mudit before even he starts, because I see some people are already leaving. So I just wanted to tell people that I would love to, for the last 1 hour, I've just been having a one-sided monologue sort of a thing, kind of. But I would love to remain in touch with you all outside of today. So I'm going to just be putting my Instagram handle out here. And also, I'll put my email address. So in case you want to reach out, have a chat, or I'm not marketing or selling anything. I'm just, if you want to have a chat or just remain in touch, try and do that. And yeah, I mean, I would love if you want to add me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and let's remain in touch outside of this event as well if you have any questions. And yeah, that's good.
Thank you so much, Revant, and thank you for sharing the details as well. I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect back because of the shortage of time that we had. And before I go on to the closing ceremony, I would also like to personally thank all the people who took out time to attend today's session, and of course from outside India as well. There were references of Indian Institute, so just to add, there were reference to IIM, so that's one of the best management or business school in India. And that was for you, Galal, Liz, and Caroline, who is joining from Kenya. So that was one of the small references that happened, and I personally would want to thank everyone who joined us tonight for the session. And I'm still curious, Revant, as to when you started your conversation, it was about how much percentage of penguins are gay. So did you ever find it out?
I think our priorities are all wrong. I feel we focus so much on, no one has ever done research on that. I think someone should fund the research. So yeah, unfortunately, there is no answer. But yeah, I mean, that's actually a question which I think people should think about, not only when they are smoking up.
That's true, so true. And I have a question for Toastmaster Sukanya as well. So, Ranveer Singh or Ranveer Kapoor? What is it for you? And it's a trick question. I hope you can unmute yourself and answer it, but then I will have another question for you. So is it Ranveer Kapoor or Ranveer Singh? And you need to choose quickly, Sukanya. Are you Googling it?
Both.
Oh, both? All right. That's an intelligent answer, and you couldn't have chosen both. To Toastmaster Galal, we would love to have that 10-minute awesome show of yours, and we would get back to you as and when we will organize it in probably next of our weekday classes, and you get that slot and we get to watch you, Galal, perform. That would be a pleasure to all of us.
Please do send me the details as well whenever you do that.
Yes, of course. We all love the way Galal performs those tiny bits, and we would love to watch the whole thing that he has written for us. I would like to thank personally Caroline, who joins us from Anchor Toastmaster and is also a president of that club, as well as Liz. Let's have a quick photograph. So I would request everyone to please switch on your cameras. Like all of us are in our homes, so we don't mind like if you are not dressed up for the occasion, but you just can switch on the cameras and we'll have the quick photographs. I hope somebody from my team is doing that, or should I do it? Sunil, are you doing that?
Yes, yes, Mohit, I'm doing that.
Okay, I think there are two screens, so probably you'll have to scroll. We have.
Yeah, so I'm doing the second one now.
Okay, guys, please smile.
Yep, great, that's done.
Wonderful. So if you got inspired from the talk and you want to be an author, I hope you're going to change your Gmail password to I am an author. And please share your Gmail because now I know the password and I can hack into it. I would request now, just as a very small token of appreciation, Revant, we have a certificate that you deliver the talk at the Chandika Toastmasters Club, and I would request our VP Education to share that certificate, if it's possible right now, with all of us.
Yes, it is.
All right, and I would request with that for all of us to just like unmute and as a vote of thanks, with a round of applause to Revant for delivering this awesome talk tonight. Let us thank you so much, Revant.
Thank you so much again, everyone, for being here, asking me questions, and yeah, and for all the messages that you all have sent me privately as well on the group. And again, as I'm saying, I would love to remain on touch. So feel free. I mean, there's no awkwardness. We can discuss anything you want.
Thank you. And we'll deliver this certificate to your email ID. And before we close, we conduct these master classes probably Mondays or Wednesdays. And Sukanya has something to add, I think. She has finally decided, is it Ranveer Kapoor or Ranveer Singh? I hope so.
No.
All right.
Because Revant said he would like to stay in touch. So I would like to tell him that we meet every Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. and you are welcome as a guest.
I'm glad that you're now selling our club to people from outside. Thank you so much, our VP membership, for doing this. And on that note, we do meet, like we have these master classes, and you're most welcome to join us on different things. And this was one of the sessions wherein we had a leader from outside the Toastmasters fraternity talking about his experience. To close this session, I would want to leave all of you with the thought that Revant was talking about, and the Muhammad Ali quote. The man who views the world at 50 the same way as he did in 20, he really wasted 30 years of his life. So when was the last time you changed your mind about something you were passionate about? Mantra for getting your dream book published? Or do you want to know how to do a TED Talk? Just remember that simple tip that Revant gave. Always and always it is progress before perfection. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight. That's it, and we'll meet you soon in our club meetings. Bye-bye and have a very good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.